98 is actually harder than 111. So 111, we're just now getting to like parabolas and that kind of stuff, and I guess it's like a little bit more advanced than parabolas, that just basic high school algebra. But 98, they're actually having us do like factoring.
Factoring is fun.
Of polynomials.
Polynomials are awesome.
Yeah, they are. But I find that more difficult than graphing a parabola, which is what I'm doing in 111. It's weird.
Cope.
It's not like it's troubling me, it's just weird.
It's alright. Alrighty, guys, let's jump into this. So, we're going to go through a little bit more Windows 2003 server today. How did your defrags go yesterday? They still running?
No, I was done, but it didn't give me much. I was at 8%, it gave me 9%.
Sweet! A whole percentage point.
Yeah.
In some cases,
really
that's a good thing.
15%.
Yeah.
So there you have it.
Alright. So we've gone through administrative tools, so you guys have actually seen all the other things that you would do along the way. Right? So we've gone through Event Viewer, we've gone through Configure, we built ourselves a web server yesterday, we did all this really other kind of cool stuff. We've seen and done local security policies and all the rest of it. There's a whole other panel here called the control panel that basically is more specific to this computer than it is to being a server, until you start getting into some of the other things that go along with it. Right? So network connections, pretty standard. Everybody knows how to find your local connection, right? So it'd be Start, Control Panel, Network Connections, and then you can go to the local area connection that you've got. All right. So instead of doing stuff at the command line by using what command? ipconfig. If you just click on Properties, you can actually go through and pull up what your internet protocol looks like. So if you just click on that and then go OK, hopefully it won't disappear on you. All right. So this thing's set to do IP automatically. So it's set to DHCP because I'm working in a virtual server, and that's usually what you want to do. You can also do an alternate, so that if you have two NIC cards, you can actually do primary and alternate. So you can do one NIC card and then do another NIC card at the same time. Right? And this is great. When you go to certain companies, you'll see something called a jump box. And it's actually a computer that bridges two different networks. Right? So if you go to a company like Microsoft or Google, part of the way they segment the network, but I still have to administer it. So I may be administering it from one network on to a completely different one. And this is where I'd set this up. So I can actually set this up as a jump box. You will be asked about creating jump boxes in 263. Guaranteed. You'll get questions about jump boxes. So you're going to want to set that underneath your alternate configuration. And again, it's the same thing. It's just your IP address, subnet, default gateway, DNS servers. So it's exactly what you've got. It's just good if you have a secondary NIC card in your box. All right. Client for Microsoft Networks. Basically, it's your Windows locator, right, for remote procedure calls, RPCs, remote procedure calls. Right. Network load balancing. If you are running in a cluster, you'd be working with network load balancing, and it helps balance all the stuff that's going out. And then printer sharing, so you can actually share a printer that's connected directly to this computer or to a printer spool, right? And you can decide how that's all going to be done. Yes, ma'am?
Did you change password on the internet protocol properties to obtain an IP address automatically, or did you?
No, because I'm on a virtual box, all this stuff's going to be DHCP.
So you changed it?
No, this is exactly how it came up. And it's mostly because the other thing you can do, and I don't recommend you do this, is you can actually install specific protocols, a specific service, or do a client provide access configuration files you're working with. If you decide to do a service, click on service and click on add. It will give you this big long list of services that you can do, right? And maybe not so many, but if you have quality of service running or service advertising, right? Service advertising is a lot like UPnP. So you can cancel that. If you want to actually go in for a protocol, You can add that, and you can add different protocols to this as your network requires it. So if you have a bunch of Apple computers on your network, you can add Apple Talk. Or you can add TCP IP version 6, which is the latest and greatest IP version that's going on. Yes, ma'am?
What is the network load balancing for again?
Network load balancing is if you're in a clustered system. They'll all talk to each other to make sure that everyone's working efficiently, so that you don't have to worry about it. So that's basically the things you can do in here, right? You can also set it up so it will authenticate to a specific way. If you set it up for smart card or other certificate, you have to have your key master installed and all the other keys done, right? And then advanced, if you want to turn on your Windows firewall, click on settings. Where are you? All right, so did you go, are you in local area connection properties, right? All right, click on the advanced tab. And you can go into settings for your firewall if the firewall service is actually turned on, right? If it's not turned on and you click on yes, it will bring up this screen so you can actually see that it's either on or off, what exceptions you're actually allowing for it, and then you can actually set up settings based on what you want to do, right? For either NIC card, this firewall will work, right? And remember, we have ICMP turned off over most of the campus. If you want to be able to ping this computer, you have to turn on ICMP, and you have to make an exception for it. All right, always interesting, right? If you want to do ICMP, if you want to be able to ping back and forth, you have to make an exception for that, and that is true in Windows 2012, Windows 2008, Windows 2003. All right, hold on. So if you try to ping a computer on your network and you don't have ping enabled, you'll get no answer from it. Yes, sir.
Plans would have been thwarted.
My plans have been thwarted,
Your plans would have been thwarted if it was one of these.
but it's not.
I just have not.
I'm good. I don't like my plans thwarted. All right, so but basically that's where you'd set all this stuff up, right? So if you want to ping something, you actually have to make an exception for that in your local area connection status. All right. In control panel, the other thing you can do too, right? Printers and faxes, regional language. If you really want to mess with someone's head, change the language pack over to something that they don't know, right? So you can change the language packs over to something else. So if you primarily speak Spanish, or one of the things I'm doing is because I'm learning Chinese, is I've changed the computer over in my house over to Mandarin. So changed it over to Chinese Mandarin. This one doesn't look like it does the Chinese language pack. So everything on my computer is in Chinese because it's one way of getting me to do this. So it translates everything over to Chinese. It translates all my web services over to Chinese. It does everything in Chinese. Yeah, I don't want to leave this as Filipino. Yeah. Right, and you can also change the location on it to wherever you want to do. You have to change the language pack and that. You can install extra stuff if you want to do it. And then advanced is just basically how you want to do the Unicode for those, right? Because remember, languages usually have more than what we can allow in ASCII, right? So we can swap over to Unicode for that. And I'm just going to cancel out of that. But yeah, no, it really ticks off my wife because I've changed everything in the house over to Chinese, and she's really getting annoyed with me for that. I have to make her a special login that says she's in the United States, not in China.
Well, just for that.
Listen, I mean, after 21 years of marriage, annoying my wife is like is a sport. All right.
I'm with you on that.
All right. Scheduled tasks. This one's kind of interesting. If you have a repetitive task that you do all the time as an administrator, you can actually schedule that task to work for you while you're away. So if you do a scheduled task, you can go click on next, and it will actually click on what program you want to do. So if you want to do automated backups, just pick the backup program, click on next, call it whatever you want to do. Backup my box. You can do it daily, weekly, monthly, one time only, when the computer starts or when I log in. So let's do this daily. Start time. When do I want this done? Let's do this late at night so I don't have to worry about it. We want to do this every day, starting today. Enter the username, enter the password, because it has to have credentials. right? It has to know what context we're running as. And then one of the interesting things is the advanced options. So this will start doing this every day, right?
11 o'clock.
Yep. Which means this will never happen because I've never logged in at 10. And you can set who it's running as, schedule, the settings, delete the task if it's not scheduled, only start the task. So there's lots of things you can do in here. And then security, who can actually run this and do what they need to do. So Task Manager is a really good way of automating repetitive tasks. You can literally set an entire domain to back up or do a disaster recovery process every day by moving all the fresh data over to whatever server you want to set it to, right? So if you're the University of Washington and you're your fallback positions in Spokane, Washington, you can literally set the whole network to back up automatically over to the Spokane data center automatically. You don't have to get involved. You just do it late at night when very few people are going to be on the network to notice all the usage that's going on with the computers. So Task Manager or Task Scheduler is a really good way of scheduling repetitive tasks that you have to do as a system administrator, right? Not a whole lot of people know about this until they get really under the hood, so this is kind of a neat trick. So if someone asks you in an interview, what will I do if I have a repetitive task that needs to be done, you just say, well, if it's Windows, I can schedule the task, right? And Linux has something similar. It's called cron. It's the same kind of concept. We schedule repetitive tasks to happen all over every day and give us a report or do a particular action. So Task Manager is really kind of cool, and that's underneath the control panel, scheduled tasks. Sounds, speech if you want to do text-to-speech, stored usernames and passwords. This one's actually kind of interesting. If you want to store your login information for network locations other than this box, Windows can do that for you. The danger is someone like me will come along and go, ooh, toys, right? Or someone else may log in as you and then all of a sudden have your Gmail, your Facebook, all the other accounts that you try to keep kind of private. So you can,
That's why they go
yes, so you can, but I'd be careful with it, right? Just because you can doesn't necessarily mean it's a good idea. That's one of those things that kind of goes along with it. You can remap someone's keyboard, which is always fun. Map keys like E over to an uncommon function, which is always fun, because E is the most commonly used word in the English language. If you have E set to delete, every time they hit the THE, it will just give them a T. That's it. So remapping keyboards is fun. Not that I would suggest you do it.
Which one is that? Oh, keyboard?
Yep, keyboard properties. You can also change the hardware on them, which is kind of entertaining. So make their keyboard completely invalid. Hint. Hint for later. All right, and then system. System will tell you what your computer is actually doing, what's it running right now. So it says Windows Server 2003, Servers Pack 2, registration numbers, what kind of CPU you're running, right? So I'm running a Core 2 Duo CPU, 33 gigahertz with a little less than 2 gigs of RAM on the box. It has a computer name, right? If I want to do a domain, if I want to join a computer to a domain, I go into computer name, rename this computer, or join a domain, click change. So I can change my computer name. If I want to join a domain, I have to know the domain that I want to join. And this should blow out because I don't have permissions to add a computer to the domain. Actually, let me just change that because I'm already a member of that. So if I do a domain that I want to become a member of, I may not have the permissions to do it because I have to be a domain admin. But when you go into 262 and you go into 263 and 264, you're going to be joining all your computers into the domain in your pod. So don't forget this one. This is probably, you'll see this here, you'll see it in 161. You'll really be using it a lot in 262, right? Joining a domain is one of those really fundamental kind of easy things that when you're building out a new box, you've got it all set up, you've got all the patches, then you join the domain afterwards. You have to make sure you're a domain administrator to do that, right? Then it will tell you about the hardware, so your device manager, much like you were using in XP, it's the same interface, right? So if everything's working hunky-dory, you don't have a question mark. If you have a question mark, then that tells you that there's no driver for that and there's an issue, right? And you can go ahead and check its properties, and it will tell you what it is and what it's about, what it doesn't know, where it's sitting on the system, what its value is. So if you need to hunt it down in the registry, you can go hunt it down in the registry if you need to. How do we get to the registry? Regedit. So your device manager will tell you if there's a driver missing or if there's a real bigger problem with it. You can turn on or turn off Windows Update, right? Windows Update is important, and you've also got something called hardware profiles. If your boss plays World of Warcraft at work and you want to cut off his video card and drop him off to a lower standard video card, give him a different hardware profile that uses the video card in the computer instead of the big honking NVIDIA card that you bought for him, and see what his brain does. You just give him a different hardware profile, and then when he complains, he calls up how help desk isn't working. You go up and you change the hardware profile for him back to the NVIDIA card, and then he'll be happy. And you set a repetitive task to constantly bring in, every time he logs in, to his old VGA card, right? And that you go up there and you're a hero every day until they catch on to you, and then you're fired. Right? But I mean, honestly, you can actually, one of the bad thing about IT is that we play pranks on each other all the time, and we'll play pranks like this all the time, right? We'll put your screensaver onto the blue screen of death, forcing you to hit the restart button and other things. So we do horrible things like this to each other, just so you guys know. I'm teaching you things that are probably off script. All right.
You want to talk about pranks with the city of San Francisco?
I already did that one.
You ready that one?
Yeah. All right. So remote. If you want to allow remote assistance, most personal computers that ship nowadays will have remote assistance off. If you're going to do something like get help support from Microsoft or someone else, or if help desk needs to get into your box, remote assistance has to be turned on, right? So you can remotely log in. The neat trick is to get someone to turn on remote assistance for you, not realizing what they're doing, right? Because then you can do fun things with them. And then enable remote desktop on this computer. This is really kind of fun. So some local accounts may not have passwords. Accounts used for remote connections must have passwords. And then we can actually set remote users for who we want to actually have access to this. So we can look and see what we've got. Is there anybody in here for this box? All right. And we want to find all the users on this. So the only person that can do this is the administrator. So we can make the administrator part of remote desktop logins, right? So it's kind of neat. So enable remote desktop underneath consistent properties remote, enable remote desktop, select remote users, right? Click on add. The best way to do this is to click on the advanced tab down here and just let the computer find everything that it has access to, right? So the administrator is the only one on this box. If I was a member of a domain, I would have every domain user on that. So you want to make sure you click on the really nice fun help desk support Dan. Always add him. All right? Then click on the person and then go OK. And then go OK, then go OK, and that person is good to go. Right? So that's kind of some of the neat things you can do. Advanced, you can set performance on your box, right? Performance is huge with me. So visual effects, right? If you really want to annoy people off, animate the windows. Animation is always fun. Everybody loves animation. Always. Huh? So we go to advanced, click on settings, and we go custom, then we animate the windows when minimizing or maximizing. All right, so what that looks like then is when we bring it up, and then when we bring it down, it gets little animated, little hitchy things. And everyone thinks that their computer's having problems when you do this, because it's not normal behavior for your window to blink like this. All right, and they'll notice this. They'll go, oh my God, it's blinking. Why is it blinking? I need to call the help desk. That's not normal behavior. Oh, I need remote access so I can fix it for you.
Remote access is always fun, especially when you log in the computer while they're on it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I love it when you do that too. All right, user profiles, you can change the profiles of the user types, right? So if you make it a local profile that's to that box, if you make it a roaming profile, that means I can log in anywhere on the network. And you'll notice that my goal is to get you to call me at the help desk. Why? Why would I want you to call me? Because what is social engineering? Hi, this is Dan at the help desk, and we notice that your screen is blinking every time you minimize or maximize the screen. Can you enable remote access for me so I can check it out and make sure that your computer's working okay? Because we're getting some really odd things off of this. And people go, yeah, I noticed that. Here, let me go turn that on for you. I could be calling from outer Mongolia, and they do this for me. The most fun I've ever had is that if you went into the financial district there in London, people would actually give up their username and their passwords for a candy bar. You hand them a candy bar, it's a regular American-sized candy bar, and they would give you their username and their password for their company for a candy bar. Works about 75% of the time.
I actually had an interesting conversation with a woman owner who's an intrusion specialist. That's what she does day in and day out. And about the fact that being a woman actually makes social engineering even more interesting.
Yes.
Because you're considered less of a threat.
Yes. Yes. Social engineering for women is tons easier than it is for a guy. So if it's me, I have to dress appropriately for the role that I want to portray, and all the facial hair has to go, right? Because a beard and a goatee especially makes me untrustworthy. I can never get elected to office wearing a beard, a mustache, or a goatee. That's just a modern fact of politics. Huh?
Challenge accepted.
The last president that had a beard was who?
Herbert Hoover.
Yep. Herbert Hoover.
Yeah, guess what happened under his administration?
Didn't he get assassinated?
No, that was
No?
1929. The stock
Okay.
market crashed.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so beards bring doom. All right. And then startup and recovery. If you really want to mess with someone's head, change the recovery options on startup. Right? So don't let them automatically restart if there's a system failure and then induce a failure in the registry, and they'll call you up. Right? Send an administrative alert is always good, because then they'll get this big alert on their screen going, oh my God, we're all going to die, most gross hazard. Right? Because Microsoft still doesn't know how to write a user-friendly alert. Warning, error code 09932, kernel panic, failure. And then it goes down, and it calls it a day. Yep.
If you have an unexpected shutdown, it just has generic error
Mhm.
49.
Yep. So, but basically you can have a lot of fun in the advanced tab, right? So good for pranking your fellow IT people, good for social engineering. And again, I can go into the registry and I can set all this stuff up automatically and then social engineer the bejesus out of somebody. So if someone's starting to call and worried about what's going on, check their advanced tab. Check to see if they've enabled remote connections for someone you have no idea who it is, right? If you ever see the name Blen on your network, panic. That would be me. Right? Blen, B-L-E-N. Blen. It is a big chunk of pop culture. Actually, it's a big chunk of Japanese pop culture, which I'll explain when the microphone is off.
Okay.
All right? But basically, that's what you can do. You can also set your environmental variables, where your temp directories are, right? The good part is that if you set your temporary directory over to the server, if you're in forensics on the network, this will store all their temporary files for that user profile, including all the temporary files that are generated by internet browsers. Right? So that's one way of getting their temporary cache off their local computer and into a location where you can actually go through and check it without giving away your hand. So if you're in doing computer forensics, go into the environmental variables and change their temporary directory over to a storage area on a server somewhere so you can get to it and they'll never notice. Right? You can also change all their logs around if they're using different things, other programs. Path is really important for some of the programs you're going to be running later on in life, right? So you have to know your path variables and you have to know how to set it. So if you go down to System, Path, just click on the Edit button and it will show you path text and then what variables it will actually run. So we have things like Windows scripting, right? Java, Visual Basic, the command line, batch files. Batch files are fun, right? Because most people forgot about batch files. Batch files are awesome if you're in forensics to grab an image. Batch files are awesome for security people if you want to do something evil to their computer, right? So if you see a batch file, what's going on with that? Or if they turned off batch files, that's also kind of a, why did you do that? Because most people don't know what's under the hood, right? If you really want to confuse somebody, change the operating, because this is part of the banner OS. Apple 10.2.5. And when someone comes and scans the network, they'll say, oh, it's an Apple computer. Excellent. I've got some really wonderful Apple attacks. That will never work on this box. Right? This is called deception, right? If you are in a hostile network, deception is absolutely appropriate to do. So if any of you guys decide to join PRCC-DC, if you guys decide to join the Cyber Defense Club here at school and actually participate next March in PRCC-DC, deception is about 20% of the entire game, right? Making sure the hackers are using attacks that you'll never fall victim to. Right. The problem is that when I get into your box and I zip up all your data and then ask for $3 million, they actually printed me off a piece of paper that said $3 million last year. It was actually kind of funny.
No, we didn't print out many. Like that was floating around the help desk for I don't know how long.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is perfect.
Yeah. So again, there's all these things that you can do in here as part of deception, and then error reporting. Where do you want your errors to go? Right. So you can either disable it or turn it on. You can actually choose what programs you want to actually go and do errors on. So this is kind of handy if you're debugging something. Choose the program that you want to debug so you can get the error reporting off of it, which is good if you end up in quality assurance. QA is fun, by the way. If you guys ever go into QA, that is an absolute riot. It is the most fun you can have in IT short of playing video games and play test. But that's basically, the system properties are really kind of the important part, because you can do horrible things to people and they won't even notice. All right? Firewall, taskbar, and start menu, system, start username, speech. If you want to do text to speech, this is the place you can do it. Right? You can choose from 2 personalities or 1. We have Microsoft Sam. Right?
Selected Microsoft Sam at the computer default voice.
God, that is just horrid. Alright, so someone back at Microsoft thought it would be cool. Right? So again, there's all sorts of little things you can do. Control panels for your box. For your computer only. Lots of fun can be had there. When you're in the administration tools, that's on the server side of the box. So that's the big distinction here between XP and Windows 7 and Windows 8. Right, is that the control panel is geared more towards the box and the things you can do with the box, where what's underneath administration tools are the services that you're going to be running as part of a server group. Right? And these things will come and go depending on what you're running. But this is pretty much the default out the box. And you'll notice that there's no IIS Service Manager here right now, because we didn't reinstall IIS on this. Right. So does everybody think you can remember how to install IIS? You willing to give it a shot? All right. Are there any questions though? The difference between the control panel and the administration
Where was
tools?
the text to speech?
It was underneath control panel,
Mm-hmm.
and it would be underneath speech.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So does all this stuff kind of make sense? Now there's also a shortcut. If you right-click on My Computer, right, that's right here in the title bar, and you go to Properties, you'll end up at the same system properties. So there's always a shortcut. And then there's one other shortcut I really want you guys to see. Some of the programs that you're going to be using require that you install as an administrator. If you right-click it, run as the following user, administrator, and then give the password if you've got it, right? When we do Windows 8, right, when we do Windows 8 next week, all you have to do is right-click it and go run as administrator, and it'll just zip right through and do it, which is really kind of an interesting change to the security model. Here I had to know the password. In Windows 7 and in Windows 8, I don't. I can just simply run it as the administrator. But I have to know that right-click trick. Yes?
For Windows 8, will you have to be like the administrator's group to do that? So if you're a limited user, you can right-click and hit run as administrator, and then it'll prompt you for
The password?
Just an administrator account. So if somebody else, that and the other good one to automatically run something as administrator is if you press the Windows key and R in combination,
Mhm.
bring up the run prompt. The run prompt will always run this thing.
Yeah, no, we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at that when we get to Windows 8. So, that's it. Are you guys good? Are you happy? So what happens tomorrow?
Review.
We review the midterm. It's going to be an opportunity to work on, after the review, it's going to be an opportunity to do some of your test out stuff, and then playing around with the hardware that we've got, right? But this is pretty much, does everybody think you're going to be comfortable with XP and Windows 2003 right now? Pretty much still got it down. Are you sure?
No.
Okay, when you go home, your weekend homework, right, is on a box at home using your DreamSpark account, download Windows 2003, install it as a VM, install IIS, do the snipping tool trick, right? Everybody remembers the snipping tool trick? I don't think Windows 2003 actually has a snipping tool, but just about everything else does.
You can actually.
No, Windows 2003 is on DreamSpark.
Yeah, we found that out.
Mm-hmm. So it is actually there.
I got downloaded from my old
I
computer.
think you still have that. I know for 2008 you can download the snipping tool.
Mm-hmm.
You have to unlock it. It's somewhere in the
Yeah.
OS, but I don't know if
Yeah, that's a little more advanced for this class. Pulling out a component, that's a little bit more advanced than this class is
I just
even close to.
because I was desperate.
Yes, desperation is an amazing thing
It's like,
to
I
see.
need to capture this
All right, so
in 2000.
midterm, and then making an IIS server at home. You guys good?
What's the IS server?
That's what you did yesterday.
Web server?
Yeah.
Oh,